On today's episode of my Isolation podcast, the road to Doctor Who's 60th anniversary begins with the series that started it all. But is it as good as you remember it? Of course it is. Listen in and find out why. Again, everybody, and welcome back to a very special episode of my Isolation podcast, because today it is the start, it is the beginning, it is the road to the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who, which comes out in November of this year. At the time of recording this, it is the 15th of September, and the idea of this series is that it's going to be a weekly series, so it will be starting off on September 30th, and carry on October 7th, 14th, 21st, and 29th. The idea of this series is that each episode I'm going to be focusing on each of the NuWho Doctor's eras. So obviously we're starting off with the 9th Doctor. On 7th we'll be doing the 10th Doctor, 14th, 11th Doctor, 21st, 12th Doctor, and then 29th of October. Just before November hits us, it will be the 13th Doctor's era. And obviously, as you can probably tell, the first four will air on a Saturday, the last one will air on a Sunday, because obviously Jodie's whole era aired on Sundays, while Chris to Capaldi, they all aired on Saturdays. And basically, this whole weekly series is just going to be me talking about my love for the show, why I love it so much, and it's the 60th, so I may as well do it. And I've been talking about doing this for a long time now. I think I don't remember when I first mentioned the idea of doing this. I think it may have been when I did my Guardians of the Galaxy review and discussion on that, which was back in May. I think it was May. Yeah, it was May. It was May. Yeah, because Guardians of the Galaxy 3 came out in May, or Volume 3 came out in May, I should say. So I'm going to be going through each Doctor's eras leading up to the show's 60th anniversary. Another reason why I'm doing a lot of the NuWho Doctors is because I've not watched a lot of Classic Who. I know I'm a terrible person. I've not watched a lot of Classic Who. Unfortunately, I've been trying to rectify that. I've been watching a little bit more, Classic Who, buying the collector's box sets. So I've been collecting those, and I've been watching those. Watch some more classic stuff. But obviously, I'm more veteran into the NuWho era, the revived series. So that's why I'm going to be focusing more on that. I'm going to briefly go over the show's history quickly. So yeah, start in 1963 with William Hartnell as the first Doctor, and the sets were wobbly. BBC weren't really sure about it. The first episode actually had to get aired twice, because the first time it aired, it was aired the same night John Kennedy died. President Kennedy died when he was assassinated. So obviously everyone was more focused on that than a science fiction TV show. They gave it another chance, and it did well in the ratings. And then Dalek Mania became a thing, and Doctor Who ends up running up until the 80s, when Michael Grade, who all Doctor Who fans in the world don't really like very much. He hated Doctor Who. He hated it for years. He actually put the show on a 18-month hiatus in 1985. I want to say, is it 1985? 1985. Yeah. He put the show on a 18-month hiatus because he just had that much of a personal vendetta against it. He found the show embarrassing, and he just didn't like it. So he put it on an 18-month hiatus. Then they luckily came back. And then, so BBC pretty much did all they could to try and get Doctor Who off the air during the 80s, because they tried putting it up against, deliberately putting it up against like shows that they knew it wasn't going to do very well in ratings wise, and then eventually they pulled the plug and it got cancelled. There were multiple attempts to bring it back. They did there was an American version actually called The Chronicles of Doctor Who. That was developed by Philip Siegel and John Leakley. Steven Spielberg was also involved in it. That's not even a joke. It was actually going to be made in conjunction with Amblin Entertainment. What they did was they did a 40-page leather-bound Bible called the Leakley Bible. I've not read it myself, but I've watched videos of other YouTubers who have read it, and it sounds like one of the worst things in Doctor Who's 60+ year history. In fact, I'd probably go as far as to say it's probably the worst thing in Doctor Who's 60+ year history. To be honest, it's weird. The Daleks are turned to spiders. The Cybermen are called Cybes. The whole half human thing, Doctor being half human, from that was in the TV movie. That's where it came from. It came from the Leakley Bible. And then Steven Spielberg hated it so much that he pulled the plug on that as well. He read it and he thought it was bad, so they didn't go ahead with it. But instead, the BBC got more involved and they made a deal with Fox, and then they did a TV movie with Paul McGann. Bill McGann's one and only time on screen until Night of the Doctor in 2013 and Power of the Doctor last year. I've watched the TV movie. I think it's fine. I used to hate it back in the day because of the whole half human, half Time Lord thing. But now, you know what? It's all right. You know, it's not the best Doctor Who thing in the world. But you know what? It's cheesy. It's campy. It's Doctor Who, which is more. It's not. It's, Doctor Who is campy and cheesy. But the TV movie, it's not that bad. And Paul McGann's fantastic in it. He's the best thing about it. Paul McGann's always been fantastic. And I really need to delve into more audio dramas with him, to be honest, because outside of the only audio drama I've listened to from Big Finish has been the first one Chris Eccleston did back in 2021. So I need to catch up big time. But yeah, I'll hopefully listen to more audio dramas in the future. Fingers crossed. The TV movie didn't do well. It did well in England, in the UK. Didn't do well in America though. So they didn't go ahead with a full series, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you would have seen it. And Doctor Who remained dead for more years, up until 2003, when rumours and rumblings started running around there was going to be a revival. September 26, 2003, they announced that Doctor Who was coming back. It'll be coming back in 2005. Rusty Davies was going to be writing it. It came out during Scream of Shalka, which you don't know is a Flash series starring Richard E. Grant as the Doctor. Yeah, the guy that went on to play The Great Intelligence also played the Doctor. Reoccurring actors in Doctor Who, that's not really a new thing, really. So it was announced 2003 that was coming back, and then they casted Chris Eccleston, they casted Billie Piper, they casted John Barrowman, they casted everybody in their roles. The writers were hired. Originally, I think it was supposed to be 8 episodes long, but then the BBC ended up making it 13 because they liked what they saw. And obviously, Chris Eccleston only did one series because they weren't actually sure if they were going to get a second series or not. So his contract was only for one series, and he ended up not wanting to come back because of all the behind the scenes drama that happened with this one series. So they filmed it, they edited it, and then it ended in 2005, and all was right with the world. Doctor Who was back on our screens, and the show has not stopped running since. It's still going, and with Ross Davies back at the helm for the 60th, and Shui Gatwa, who I'm really looking forward to how he does in series 14. It ain't gonna stop anytime soon, people. It ain't gonna stop anytime soon. So for my personal history of Doctor Who, so 2005, it aired in March 2005, 26th of March 2005. But obviously, so I'm actually Australian. I was born in Australia. Obviously, because of the accent, I don't really sound Australian. That's because I moved to the UK when I was 10. So in Australia, we actually got it around either April or May 2005. We actually ended up getting Rose, so we actually got it a little bit later on. And I remember vividly, because obviously, like in BBC in America, they have BBC America, which is where most of the British shows, whether they were made by the BBC or made by other people like ITV or Channel 4, they always end up going to BBC America. In Australia, we had something similar. We had ABC. That's where a lot of British shows got put onto there. ABC was basically the Australian BBC. basically, a lot of, obviously there was a lot of Australian programming there as well. But there was a lot of British programming there as well. So I remember there was a show that I used to watch called Ace Lightning. I don't know if anyone remembers that. If you do, congratulations, you're old, like me. So old. Yeah, so there was a show called Ace Lightning that I used to watch. And whenever the trailer for Doctor Who came up, because it would open up with the time vortex and this guy doing the narration, and then later on in the trailer the TARS would always appear. But before the TARS appears in the trailer, I would always think it was another series for Ace Lightning, and it wasn't just something that happened once. This happened like every time it aired. I always forget it was for something else, and I always think, oh, Ace Lightning's coming back, and then the TARS will appear. I'm like, oh no, wait, no, this is that other show. Oh yeah. But then one time we're watching the trailer, TARS appears on the screen, and my mum walks in, and she sees it, and she goes, "Oh, Doctor Who's back." She used to watch the classic series back in the day. And yeah, so around May 2005 came in, Rose aired. Rose came on the air, and I didn't watch it. I think I didn't watch Rose on broadcast, and to this very day, that is one of my biggest regrets. I was in the other room. I think me and my brother were playing Smash Brothers on Melee for the GameCube, while my parents and my other siblings were watching Rose. And you see, yes, I didn't watch that. I didn't watch End of the World either. It wasn't until episode 3, The Unquiet Dead, aired, called the cold open of that. And immediately then I was hooked. I was like, hang on, this is scary, but this is quite cool. Like this is pretty cool. And after that I was a fan ever since. But to this very day, one of my biggest regrets is not watching Rose on broadcast. And I wish I was in the UK as well. When Rose broadcast, because I would love to have seen, because there was that whole thing with Graham Norton interrupted the broadcast. I would have loved to have seen that. Obviously, you can find clips of that on YouTube. But I always made it my mission to never miss an episode again, and I never did that since. Well, I say that. I mean, there were episodes during Series 1 that I did miss, but I've caught up on them now, and since Series 2, never missed an episode. Always managed to catch up on it, either on a rerun or on iPlayer. And since then, I've had family members that have come and gone from Doctor Who. They've dropped off during certain points, but I've always stuck around because I love the show. I love the show that much. Even when it got bad, I still stuck around because I was like, I know the fact that the show can be better, and the show has been better. In these first 5 series that we'll talk about, just prove that the show can be better. And Series 10 as well. That proves that the show can be better as well. We'll get into that when we get into Capaldi's era, though. And yeah, so I just love the show. I love the imagination, the exploration, the wonder, and the escapism as well. But I also do like the fact that it does talk about real world events and handles political commentary, whether it's through themes or subtext or context. That's why I love the fact the show keeps changing, keeps regenerating, keeps rebooting every couple of years, and it keeps changing and evolving to something new. The show always feels brand new to me because of the premise. I mean, you have a great premise. You can go anywhere, see anything, meet anyone. It's such a good premise, and it's ripe for great stories and great drama and great stakes and great characters and great scenarios and just greatness all around. Really, it's one of the best. It's one of those shows where it can go on forever, and it has gone on forever. And Doctor Who is still going because its premise and its concept allows it to. Its need for change, regeneration constantly allows it to. The legs start to slow down, but suddenly it drinks an energy drink and then it fucking runs again. But the show is fantastic, and I've never missed an episode since then. And as for Series 1, which we're going to talk about today, as you saw in the intro to this episode, Series 1 is still perfect. It was perfect when it first aired. It's perfect now. It's one of NuWho's best, if not NuWho's best. Series 1 is fantastic. As Chris Ruxton's Doctor would say, absolutely fantastic. That pun was not intended, but now it is. So the fact that it was like, we're just going to go all out with this. We're gonna put our best foot forward, and we're gonna make a stand and make an impact with this. And God, did they make such an impact with this, because this series is phenomenal and it is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And one of the best things about it, in my opinion, is Chris Eccleston. Chris Eccleston's incarnation of the Doctor is perfect. In fact, I would go as far as to say, of all the incarnations of the Doctor, if you asked me, which incarnation of the Doctor do you think is the definitive incarnation of the character, out of all of them, I would say Chris Eccleston. He is the definitive incarnation of this character. He embodies everything about this character, while also it's just something about his interpretation. I don't know, it's because he was the first Doctor I saw on screen, but for Chris Eccleston, there's just something about his version that can never be topped. It's that gravitas and it's that weight, and it's the fact they went for this more. He's a war veteran, because he didn't fight in the Time War. The John Hurt Doctor fought in the Time War. But the fact that this regeneration came off that approach, and he had those memories and everything. Like because obviously everyone was so used to this more, the kind of goofy, lighthearted kind of bit clownish kind of Doctors, from. Even from the last one, like Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann, but so to have this version of the Doctor where we haven't seen, old school fans haven't seen this guy for like a very long time, very 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 long time, and the fact that he's come back, but he's nothing like how you remember it, and that's so perfect because it works in a way where it reintroduces you to the show all over again. That this series is great because it cuts ties with all of the baggage from the classic era. So yeah, the fact that this Doctor is more of a war veteran of some kind, and the fact that he has an arc that his arc in the series is kind of very similar to William Hartnell's arc during his run, which again it makes sense because obviously this is meant to be a brand new, almost completely standalone jumping on point for people. It's a re-jumping on point for old fans, and it's a new jumping on point for newcomers. Where he has a similar arc to the first Doctor, where he starts off old and grouchy, but then he starts off obviously this Doctor's not old and grouchy. This Doctor's a war veteran. He's angry and he's bitter and he's alone and he's damaged from the Time War. But as the course of the series goes on, he evolves and he grows and he goes on this arc where he becomes better and he becomes more softer, similar to how William Hartnell. He started off as a grouchy old man, but he became, in his first story, William Hartnell's Doctor very nearly killed. He almost killed a caveman to death. Hit him, like nearly bludgeoned the caveman with a rock, until Ian had to stop him and say, "What are you doing?" So he was very old and very grouchy. But then, as his era went on, he started to become a little bit more softer and a bit more gentle. And Eccleston's character goes for a similar arc where he's a war veteran, he's damaged, he's alone, he's sad, and he had to destroy his planet to save the whole of the universe. And then he gets a little more softer as it goes on, goes through traveling with Rose. He makes people better, and by making other people better, he makes himself better. So by the end of the series, he's ready to destroy the Daleks, and Daleks are saying, "Would you actually do it?" And he just goes, "No, I'd rather be a coward any day." And that's such a perfect moment. But we'll get onto that when we get onto that. We'll be talking through all of the episodes. But one moment I do want to touch on already. Well, two moments I want to touch on. I think some of his best is Dalek. I think the moment for me in that episode there is when he's screaming at the Dalek to kill itself, and why don't you just rid the universe of your filth? Why don't you just die? The way that the pain and the suffering and the anger and the aggression that he has on his face, similar to and the fact that the Dalek literally says to him, you would make a good Dalek. And there's that kind of realization on his face where he knows that the Dalek is correct, he knows it's right, but he doesn't want to believe it. You see that in his face. And Chris Eccleston's such a good actor as well, man. It's sad that he didn't come back, but but obviously he didn't come back for good reasons, and he ended up going on his decade-long hiatus from Doctor Who until Big Finish came along, and he's still doing it now to this very day. And I'm glad that he's starting to embrace the fandom more. He's going to conventions more. He's meeting fans more. He's actually talking about Doctor Who more. He's embracing the show a bit more. I don't think that's enough to get him back in the show proper. I'll be absolutely shocked if Chris Eccleston's Doctor popped up in the 60th. And the other good moment as well is in the Empty Child and Doctor dances, uses nanogenes to save everybody. Everybody lives where he's happy and he's smiling, and probably one of the first times in this series, in this Doctor's life, he's proper happy. He's in this scenario where he saved everybody, which doesn't happen a lot in Doctor Who. Doesn't happen a lot particularly during Russell's era, because in Russell's era, a lot of people die in Russell's era in RTD1. So a lot of people are gonna die, and probably in RTD2. And yeah, so just this once, everybody lives. And that's such a great moment. For me, that's such a fantastic moment. Yeah, and those are the moments that make me think that, Chris Eccleston, he's easily the definitive incarnation of the character. hands down. Out of all of them, he is the best one. The best one is Chris Eccleston's Ninth Doctor. I just love it, and even his costume as well, man. Like that, I love how simple it is. Again, like the costume's not that, like, 'cause obviously as the Doctors went on, they went a bit more bigger and more bombastic with the costumes. But this one, he wanted to be more stripped down. He wanted to be more laid back. He wanted to be a bit more basic. He wanted to kind of just look like your average Joe trying to blend in with humanity, and it just works. Like, the fact that the black jeans, shoes, that amazing leather jacket, and and obviously the fact he's still got all the jumpers as well. The kind of jumper he wears it's kind of supposed to fit in with the theme of that episode, which I kind of like as well. Simple, straight and to the point. But yeah, Chris Eccleston, fantastic. Billie Piper's Rose. So Rose is a bit of a weird companion for me. I love her in Series 1, and I think she's fantastic with Eccleston. I think her and Eccleston, Ninth Doctor, they have some great chemistry together. I don't really like her when she's with David Tennant, though, in Series 2. I don't think her and Tennant were able to recapture that spark and that chemistry, at least in my opinion, anyway. There's definitely not as much as, with her and Eccleston. With her and Eccleston, it feels like these two friends who are almost, in a weird way, like they're both kind of lost in their life. Like the Doctor, he's traveling around a lot, but he's coming off the Time War. He's kind of lost himself to that. So he just needs somebody. He's looking for somebody to travel with him. Rose was just this girl that was in the right place at the right time, which I love that. I love the fact that she was literally that was it. She was right place, right time. It wasn't predetermined. It wasn't a destiny thing like they did with the Moffat era. And again, I love with Eccleston because they feel like these two, she works in a shop. She doesn't really got a lot going on with her life, and she doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life. And then the Doctor comes in and he says, well, do you want to travel with me in space and time? And she's like, sure. So she just races into the TARDIS, and then they fly off, and they have these shit ton of adventures, and she does all this cool stuff. Rose is so good in Series 1. I do love Rose in Series 1. There's a chemistry with her and Eccleston. They're both these kind of lost souls in a weird way, where they're trying to find out who they are, and she's trying to find out who she is. He's trying to rediscover who he is, because obviously after the Time War, he's a little bit lost in his life, particularly in this incarnation. And they both contrast really well together, and I think they make a really good team. And they're just really good friends as well. They're great friends. It's just a lot of good moments as well, like Father's Day, for instance. That's such a fantastic episode, Father's Day. That episode, to me, that Father's Day is perfect episode for, especially that's the definitive episode for Rose Tyler. She's so good in that. That final speech she gives to when she comes back from traveling, and she realizes she's been gone for a year, and she has to comfort her mum, because her mum's been like, where are you? Where have you been? I don't know where have you been? And she's upset. And then other moments as well, like when she figures out how to defeat Slovene in Aliens of London and World War III. Her and Harriet Jones, former Prime Minister, they're the ones who figure it out. I love that moment. And so Rose is a great character, and the other characters as well. I mean, they're so legendary. I mean, you've got Jackie Tyler, who is the queen of all Doctor Who companions' parents. She gets a lot of great moments. Cam Dyke Harkness, he's a great character. So it was great to see getting introduced to him for the first time as well, and seeing his spin-off Torchwood. He was a great character to watch on screen. Mickey, played by Manolo Clark, he was a great character to watch, and watching how Rose traveling affects him and it affects their relationship gives him a lot of powerful and good moments and emotional moments as well, particularly in Aliens of London World War III, and Boomtown as well. Not a great episode, Boomtown, probably the weakest of Series 1, I would say, but the episode where he tells Rose he's dating someone else, and he just says to her, you left me, you ran away with somebody else. How do you think that made me feel? You show how, even though Traveling the Doctor is fantastic and it's great, it does showcase the effects that it can have on someone's relationship with their parents or boyfriends, girlfriends, what have you, jobs. It kind of, it's always going to have, it's great, but there's always a downside to it. It's not a perfect life. I think a lot of people would want, to have the TARDIS just land in their back garden and they can just go inside and just run away somewhere. But let's get into, the writing as well. Like, Rossi Davis it goes without saying, Rossi Davis is an amazing writer. He's a fantastic writer. He's a writer who you can't really go wrong with. I mean, the fact that he went through, so many loopholes and so much hell and back just to get the show brought back in 2005, because he loves the show and he misses the show, and he missed so many good choices as well. The fact that he was like, we're not gonna completely reference the classic era, we're gonna cut ties with most of the baggage and have this be his own kind of new standalone thing. The fact that while there is a story arc, he doesn't really focus too much on it, where new viewers can just jump in at any given point, because he's thinking of he's thinking of the fans but he's also thinking of the casual viewer, which I think people need to. I think most people seem to think that it's all the gigantic fan bases, they're the ones who make the show successful and stuff, but really, like, when you come down to it, it really is the casual viewer. Never underestimate how powerful the casual viewer can be, because trust me, the casual viewer can make and break a movie's box office or a TV show's ratings, definitely. And Doctor Who proved that with the fact he fought the casual viewer during his writing, but and the fact that he kept the fan service down to a minimum. At the time we didn't really think much of that, but then once the Stephen Moffat era came around and they started kind of just, overdosing us on fan service, it kind of made you think back to that and being like, oh, I'm so glad that Russell kept it to like a minimum. Like never referencing anything too much. There's not a reference in every episode. There's usually one or two couple of references to the past, but most of the time it's speaking of the here and the now and the new. And I love that. And it's all down to Russell being an amazing showrunner. And I'm so excited to see him come back to the show, because, look, I'm not one of these people who thinks that, oh, Doctor Who went downhill after Russell left. I didn't. It didn't go downhill or anything like that. But that being said, though, I am glad to see him come back. It's exciting to see him come back because he's evolved as a writer. If you kept up to date with some of his stuff, like I remember watching Cucumber, Banana, and Tofu when that aired. I watched, I even watched It's a Sin. One of the things about Russell Davies' writing as well is that he's so good at grounding keeping it grounded. Even in shows like Doctor Who, which is obviously more of the scientific and the fantasy elements of it, he still manages to keep it grounded through his characters. All of these characters, they feel grounded in reality. They feel like people you would meet. They don't really feel like the characters in a TV show. Obviously, they're characters in a TV show, but they don't feel like characters in a TV show. They feel like characters people you'd see down the road or the street, on the corner shop. He's so good at grounding his characters in his companions, their family members. He's good at getting that kind of dynamic down. These are people that you've seen before. You've seen people like these characters. You've met people like Rose, like Harriet, like Jackie, like you've met people like Mickey or John or Captain Jack or Linda with a Y, or any of the other characters in other stories. You've met people like those characters, in real life, and that's just great to watch that kind of watch that become a fold. There's also so much representation in his era as well, particularly for 2005. There's quite a lot of good representation as well, and he's so good at handling this whole idea that Doctor Who didn't get political until Jodie Whittaker came in. That's wrong. That's very, very, very wrong, because if you watch Russell's era now and the stuff that he writes now, it's he's a very politically charged writer. In London World War III, he had the Conservatives represented by farting aliens, stuff like that. That's very, very politically charged. He's a very politically charged man, but he also keeps the more fancy elements in mind, where it's like you don't really notice that stuff until you get older. It's how you get old when you get older, and stuff like you notice that stuff when you watch it as a kid. You don't really notice that stuff. You're too busy being amazed by the effects and the monsters and just the worlds and the world building and stuff like that gets added into it along the way. But now let's get into the episode list for Series 1. So let's start off with Rose. An amazing, wonderful, fantastic introduction. Oh my god, it's just one of those things where it's like, this is such a good... It's one of those things where it feels like the beginning of something new. It feels like something completely different, despite the fact that it's supposed to be a revival of a classic TV show. I feel like most TV revivals, because obviously TV revivals now are very common now, actually. Like, we're getting more of them now, unfortunately. Like, there are shows out there that are coming back that I'm just like, does this really need to come back? The way that, this one's presenting it, where it feels like it's the start of something new, something different. It's a new beginning. It feels, and that's the reason why I love this. It feels new. It's like like I said, most TV revivals nowadays would probably just pick up where the last episode left off or something like that. But for Doctor Who, because it's a because of its premise, because of its concept, it doesn't have to pick up where the last episode left off. Like we don't have to pick up where Survival left off, or even when the TV movie came out, that didn't pick up where Survival left off. When that movie started, the Seventh Doctor was in a new TARDIS. Ace was nowhere to be seen. And it felt like that also felt like kind of a new beginning as well. And this one as well. I mean, the events of the TV movie aren't mentioned whatsoever. Yeah, the Daleks come back, but again, it's treated like a new. It doesn't feel like fan service. It feels like something brand new, and I love that about this. And it introduces you to the world, the concept of time travel, and who the Doctor is, and Rose Tyler, and this is going to be what this is what Saturday TV drama is going to be like for the next like 15 years. Or how many years Doctor Who has been on. This is what kicked off, TV drama for Saturday night TV drama in a way. Like this brought it back. It revived that as well as the show itself. And yeah, so we get introduced to all these new characters. We get introduced to the Ninth Doctor for the first time. Well, it's for old fans, it's a reintroduction to a character they've seen before, but a completely new incarnation. And that again creates more mystery around the character, because when they were first introduced to the first Doctor, William Hartnell, back in 1963, we knew nothing about him. We just knew he was an old man with a police box that turned out to be a spaceship, and he just travelled in time and space with his granddaughter, and that was it. With the Ninth Doctor, he comes in, and we're like, how do you regenerate into him? Like, what happened? And we do get more of what happened as the series goes on. And as this era goes on, but the fact that this thing it treats itself like it's a completely new thing, a new show. It doesn't feel like a revival. It feels like the start of a new era, a new show, a completely new show. And I love that. I love this reinvention. And again, we get just all these new characters. We get introduced to Mickey for the first time, Jackie for the first time. We do have a classic villain come back, but it's not treated in a way where it'll alienate the casual viewer who didn't watch the classic series, who don't know what the Autons is. But also it's a cool way to ease old fans back into it by having a classic villain like the Autons come back into it. And they're threatening as hell in this episode. I mean, obviously the idea of like a plastic mannequin like coming to life. That idea is creepy, and I'm sure when it was done during the John Pertwee era, it was seen as creepy. But where nowadays we will watch that and it'll look quite cheesy and quite campy, because that was just how Doctor Who was back in the day. What was considered scary and frightening back then is now considered cheesy and campy now. But that still doesn't make it bad or anything like that. I love good some cheese. I love good cheese and love good camp in my sci-fi. But they're threatening in this, and they're proper like threatening in this, and it's just, oh my god, like, and the way they walk around when Rose is in the basement, and then at first she thinks they're students playing a prank, and then it gets even more terrifying. But we know obviously that something's going down, but like she doesn't know, and then we're like, no, Rose, get out of there, and it really puts her in danger. And that's what I like about this show, particularly about this Russell's first era, is that everyone feels like they're in danger. This could be the last time we see Rose, last time we see Mickey, last time we see the Doctor, and it's only the first episode. But even then, throughout the whole series. And yeah, there's some silly things in here. One becomes like a bin, and Rick gets thrown in the bin because I think his hands get attached to it, and it throws him in there, and it eats him up. I feel like that was a little bit silly, but I do like the idea of how the Autons are basically not just plastic mannequins. They're invading literally anything that comes close to being plastic. And for me, that's just it's so creepy and so scary. You get introduced to Clive, who's running this kind of conspiracy theory about who the Doctor is, and the mannequin version of Mickey. I mean, that was terrifying. The way he moved, the way he spoke, the way he looked as well. How did they accomplish that? Well, the special effects as well. Yeah, they dated a little bit, but this is like 2005. It's CGI, and the fact and even then the CG doesn't look that bad. Like the when Doctor goes to the London Eye, and he speaks to the Nestane consciousness as well, and it's just basically this massive blob of CG. It doesn't look that bad though. It looks fine, and for the time it looks good. And the fact that they again relied on practical effects for the actual Autons, for most of the Autons anyway, like them walking around, and the fact that Clive died as well, that was proper terrifying. And the fact that they put Jackie, Rose's mum, in danger. And Rose is calling and saying, just go home, don't go out, go back home, lock the doors. And it just gives you this panic and suspense that you get throughout the whole series. Not just, and even to this very day, you get that feeling of the show itself, where anything could happen, anyone could just die like that. The way death is handled is very good in this era, and particularly in this episode as well. Like when Ricky gets eaten by the bin, we think he's dead. Obviously, he's not dead. He turns out to be alive. Because I think they have to keep him to keep the image of him. I think that's how it. I think that's the reason they give. I'm not too sure. That could, or I could be getting that mixed up with the Zygons in series 9. But and seeing again Rose and Doctor get introduced, and seeing the Doctor meet a companion again for the first time since a TV movie in this brand new kind of way. That is being told is fantastic. I mean, I'm going to say that a lot in this one, probably because that's what the Ninth Doctor says a lot, but it's absolutely fantastic. And I love the fact that Rose was just this shop assistant that was just, again, in the right place at the right time. Most of the companions as well, I love that about, they just happened to be in the right place. They walked into the right room or anything like that. It gives you this feeling that literally anything can happen. Anything could happen in this show. Literally anything. And that's what I love about it. And the final scene as well, where he's trying to convince her to come with him, and she's like, is there always this danger? He's like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I've got to look after my boyfriend. And then he comes back and he's like, oh, did I mention it? Trouble's in time. And then she just races off, and there's that slow-mo, and then we cut to the credits, and it feels like the beginning. Something has begun, something has happened. Obviously this is the first episode, but there's this really big theme of just the fact that this is the beginning of something new, something interesting, something we can all just sit down and watch and everything. It's just every time I rewatch Rose, that's the feeling I get when I watch Rose. It feels like the beginning, and it's a really great beginning, and it's such a good jumping on point. This 11th Hour, Woman Who Fell to Earth, they're all great jumping on points, and I'm sure Sri Gatwa's first episode in series 14 will be a good jumping on point as well. But for now, I feel like it's just fantastic. It's absolutely it's a fantastic episode, absolutely fantastic episode. And now we got to the end of the world. The second episode, again, really great episode. I remember I used to not like this one for some reason. When I was younger, I'm not really sure why. It's great. I mean, it's got a lot of suspense. It introduces us to a lot of great characters that we'll meet later on. It introduces us to the psychic paper for the first time as well. We get introduced to the face of Bo for the first time, who reappears in series 1 to 3, and obviously it's hinted at that he's actually Captain Jack. And yeah, so he takes her to Platform 1, the space station. Earth is abandoned, and the sun destroys it. That's how we start episode 2. The Earth gets destroyed by the sun. The last days of planet Earth, time's up, and that's how we start this off. And it's a great start. It starts with this great kind of conflict between him and Rose, because Rose she's technically the last human on the station, and we get to, and she doesn't know how to handle that, and there's that great conflict between her and Doctor later on in the episode. And obviously we got Cassandra for the first time as well, who's played by Zoe Wanamaker, and she does a really good job as Lady Cassandra. I think I don't because obviously I missed this episode on broadcast, but I knew who Lady Cassandra was because I did watch the first episode of series 2, New Earth. She's in, so I already knew she was a bad guy. And then whenever you watched this episode, End of the World, for the first time, when she pops up, and I was like, oh, she's going to be the bad guy. I wonder if it's weird. It's like, if you watch it for the first time, do you think she's the baddie, or is it obvious that she's the baddie? I'm going to say they keep it hidden quite well enough towards the end. But the fact that she's a really good villain as well. She's very cunning, very very slimy, very very. I love the fact that she's just basically a massive piece of skin. Like, she's basically what the last human would probably look like. Just a massive piece of skin with a face. What the last human would look like on the surface, and she reeks that kind of, I can, because obviously people who want to live forever and stuff like that. I feel like somebody would actually try that, just try and be like a massive expanded piece of skin. And she always has to be moisturized as well. Moisturize me, that's what she says. And we also get the sporadic spiders. That were really cool. They also made a lot of good suspense in there. particularly at the end when the Doctor's using the spider to figure out who the culprit is. And there's that scene where he meets the lady who's made out of a tree. Can't remember her name. That scene where she has to hold onto the switch to make sure that, to stop the fans from turning so he can get through. And he's like, he's like, no, you're gonna burn. And she's like, oh, you better hurry up then. And then she does end up burning and ends up dying. And it's like, it's just, oh god, it's horrible. It's again, like I said before, anything can happen in the show. Like anyone can die. Anyone can literally die. There's that scene where Rose gets locked in the room, where she's about to get, incinerated by the sun. We also get the idea of the super phone for the first time, and she's able to call her mum from anywhere, anytime, any place, and it can still work, which is really cool. Which is a really cool invention as well. I quite like that. And yeah, so the fact that Cassandra's the saboteur, that was a really cool twist. And it's just overall it's just a really good episode as well. I do like just the idea that I love the idea that the first thing the Doctor does, he takes his new companion to show her the end of the world. But it does show the time we've got. It's a good way of showing how time matters and how little time we have left really on this planet, and how we've got to make the most of it before. There's that last scene where him and Rose are just looking at are in London and they're watching people walk by, and and she's like, oh, can you smell chips? So let's get chips. And they stay inside and they just go and get chips, because it's like they want to make, they don't want to take the Earth for granted. And there's that scene where he's like, oh, you think that it's going to end with global warming and stuff like that, funny little humans. And it's just a good scene. And I do like the idea that he takes her there and it making the most of the time you've got left, because you never know when it could end. And obviously she's seen the end, she knows how it ends. But for her, everybody else, they don't know how it ends. So for her, she just wants to make the most of it. Basically, I think that's basically how it is. And just looking at the costumes as well, I mean, they look so cool. And the fact that a lot of these were just practical effects, and they all look great. They all look fantastic. They all look good. And the fact they were on a television budget and they look this good, especially like a 2005 budget as well, and they still look this good. That to me is just it's just great. It's amazing. I just think it's wonderful. I mean, the special effects are just so good in this. There are things that you need there are things that you will need CG for, but and it contains quite a lot of special effects shots as well. I mean, apart from Running River Song, no other episode comes to this when it comes to special effects. So it's very special effects heavy. I mean, I don't know what the budget for this episode must have been, but damn. I do love the idea that they play Britney Spears as Toxic. I love that. I don't know why, it just suits it well. And the fact that that's the song that plays at the very end during the final battle, that's just fantastic. It's pure genius. I forgot to mention when Cassandra, she needs moisturizing, and Rose goes up to him and she says, help her. And he's like, why? What's the point? And he just lets her expand, lets her dehydrate and expand, and yeah. And that's just a very cold and just very dark kind of scene for the Doctor as well. And it shows that, again, he's very different. He's changed. The Time War has changed him. And it sets up his arc to, to kind of go through this thing where he starts to get back to who he really is, as a Time Lord and as a character as well. That's a very impactful scene. So yeah, End of the World. Honestly, fantastic. I'm going to say fantastic a lot in this. I probably am. I apologize for that. If you don't like the word fantastic, you may not want to watch this podcast, or listen to it, watch it, however you want to do it. So End of the World, great episode, and a good second episode for this series. Let's go on to the episode though that got me attached to the show, and that's The Unquiet Dead. This episode is creepy, scary, gothic, and I love it. And I love the fact that it's set in Victorian Cardiff. I love the fact that they include Charles Dickens. I just love the fact that it sets up Guinevere, played by Eve Miles, who went on to play Gwen Cooper in Torchwood. I do like the fact they do make kind of a small reference to that in I want to say Johnny's End, which again kind of does this whole thing where Ross Davis' era, which I really like, is that each thing leans into something. Like how series 1 and 2 of Doctor Who lean into Torchwood series. Torchwood series 1, and Torchwood series 1 leans into Doctor Who series 3, which leans into the first series of Sarah Jane Adventures, which leans into, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of like, this leans into that, which a lot of connectivity, a lot of connective tissue there, which unfortunately stopped after, I want to say the last time we did that was Torchwood Miracle Day. Stopped after that, but even then Series 6 didn't really lean into Miracle Day. I think it was supposed to, because John Barron was supposed to be in A Good Man Goes to War, but we'll get to that when we get to Series 6. But yeah, all this, it started with this episode as well, and Aliens London World War 3, because Tosh is in that episode. I think she's in Aliens of London when they're when they're experimenting on the pig. And yes, so it's a gothic Victorian episode. It's one of the first done by Mark Gatiss. I think he'd wrote a few maybe novels or something before this episode, maybe a few audio dramas as well. I'm not too sure. But generally, as his first episode, this is pure genius. Again, I love the gothic style. I love the fact that these ghosts are so creepy. Like they take over dead bodies. It has a lot of scale and suspense. And again, you don't know who's going to live. You don't know who's going to survive. There are points where you think to yourself, Rose is going to die, particularly if you watch it for the first time. And you do think to yourself, how in this there's that scene where the Doctor and Rose are trapped in that sort of cage. Russell really wanted to put Wales on the map with this show. He wanted Wales to be represented. He wanted to show that no, you can do stuff like this in Wales, because I don't think a lot of stuff was happening in Wales, filming wise anyway, around this time. So I love the fact that it does that really well. I love the special effects are great. The CG for the ghosts are great. The makeup for the zombie-like people are great. I love the ending where it's where Guinevere basically she dies. She holds a sentence, that's it, to attempt to communicate with them. Yeah, to open up the rift, which obviously becomes a big part of Torchwood and Boomtown. And you find out more about the Time War as well, the last great Time War. The Gelf, that's it, the Gelf's planet. That was destroyed in the early days of the Time War, and obviously, and I love the fact they use corpses as well. And you actually see the dead corpses wandering around and everything. Like it's crazy, and it's so creepy and it's so gothic and it's so cool, just so cool. And the fact that Charles Dickens, Simon Calder's a great Charles Dickens. I was happy when he made that small little cameo in Good Man Goes to War, the Wedding with a Song in Series 6. I like the fact that this is kind of the only. I like the fact that it's also set at Christmas time as well, like, because obviously this aired during the spring, but I like the fact that it's a Christmas themed episode of the new series before Christmas Invasion. This is kind of the closest thing where we get to a Ninth Doctor Christmas special, unless Big Finish did one that I'm not aware of, or they're going to do one in the future. And again, the cast do very well, and the effects are great, and I like the lighting, and the lighting is good, and the themes and everything. The tone, the more dark, efficient tone is fantastic. It helps put Wales on the map, which is really nice, and it got me hooked on the show as well. It was after this. Don't get me wrong, this episode terrified the fuck out of me, but it was like it scared me in a good way. It was like I want to watch more though. I'm scared of this show, but I want to watch more of it. It's what got me hooked. This episode what got me hooked on Doctor Who, and I never stopped loving it until I love it now, loved it then, and I love it now. I'm always gonna love Doctor Who, and it's because of this episode. This episode was my jumping on point, though I do kind of wish it was Rose. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, The Unquiet Dead is a fantastic fit episode for this series. Aliens of London and World War 3, the first two-parter of NuWho and the first two-parter of Series 1, because obviously there was at least three of them, one in the middle, one at the start, one in the middle, and one in the end. And so this is the first one of that, and Rose comes back to London, to UK, to the Earth, in what she believes is 12 hours after she left, but turns out it was a whole year. So you really see how it's affected her family, and how traveling with the Doctor has affected family and your loved ones. And I like how NuWho really does explore that, and explores that really well for the first time. You see how it affected Jackie, you see how it affected Mickey, how he got blamed for her disappearance, how everyone thought he was responsible for it, and how he got basically like shunned from society, not society, from the council building that they were in, and how people treat him like he was this villain, which is just heartbreaking to see. And it just shows again like just how traveling Doctor, it has its perks, has its ups, but it has its downs. And you see the kind of the conflict as well between Doctor number 9 and Mickey, compared to Doctor number 10 and Mickey, where there was a little bit of conflict there between them. But then I think at the end they formed some kind of a bond at least. But 9 and Mickey really did not get on, and Jackie and 9 didn't get on either. Like, she slaps him because he took Rose away and had to worry for an entire year. And I love the seeing all that stuff for the first time. I love the twists and the turns as well, and the fact that when Jackie sees the TARDIS for the first time, and she calls, I think, is it Unit? She calls Unit. We see Unit for the first time in here, and they take her to Downing Street. And I love the idea that government number 10 has been taken over by farting aliens. I used to hate the Slovenes for some reason. I always thought they were stupid, but now honestly, I love them. I love how they're just this parody of they're pretty much what Ross Davis feels about politicians. These massive fat farting people that don't care about the general public, and which is true. Unfortunately, they don't care. It's good to see that commentary as well. But he's politically chargedness, if that's even a word, really shines through. It shined through in all the episodes leading up to this one, but it shines through the most in this two-parter. He really goes for the political angle in this. I like the mysteries as well, like the fact that the spaceship crashes into Big Ben, and the Doctor has to figure out what's going on here. Yeah, he tries to figure it out, and then they find out there's this pig that the Slovenes have basically dressed him up in a suit and used him as a decoy, so everyone thought he was an alien. You see Tosh in Torchwood for the first time. You get introduced to Harriet Jones, former Prime Minister, for the first time, though you see her more as an actual. She becomes the Prime Minister, which is quite cool. She's a cool character as well, the fact that her and Doctor work well off each other. They form this friendship with Nine. Harriet Jones, former Prime Minister, great character. I'm going to continue referring to her as Harriet Jones, former Prime Minister, because fuck it, why not? Such a great character as well. I like the fact that her and Rose work well with each other. And again, there's such a great feeling of suspense, and I love the fact that the Slovenes are basically they're basically this combination between CG and CG and practical, where they're obviously, for the most part, I think they are practical effects, they're people in suits, but they're enhanced by CGI, particularly when they're running and chasing the other characters. I love the effect, the fact that they peel the skin off like it's a suit. It's funny because obviously there are actually people in suits, but they treat the skin's treated like a suit, and they kill the person, they skin them, and then they make a suit out of their skin, and it's just oh my god, it's so creepy and so horrifyingly terrifying. It's fantastic, it's perfect, fantastic. But it's such a good effect. It's so creepy. And the pig as well, is how it's been genetically modified to look alien, but it's actually just a common pig. And it's just the fact that these Slovenes, they tortured this poor animal and genetically modified him and forced him in the suit, and he gets killed because they think he's some kind of alien. And the Slovenes really fuck with the humanity in this, and the fact that they want to basically they want to basically sell Earth. They're greedy motherfuckers. They are. They want to start World War III, and the fact that again, there's this sense of fear and everything. When Jackie and the cliffhanger as well. Because obviously NuWho, classic Who would always end on cliffhangers, because the way classic Who was structured was there were serials split into multiple parts, and each part would end on cliffhanger. But for this one, they kept it to standalone episodes with the occasional two-parter at the beginning, middle, and end. Until you get to series 6, and the two-parters start to get less and less. But the way the first cliffhanger is what leaves you on that. Jackie and Mickey are cornered. Rose is cornered by Slovene. The Doctor is being electrocuted by this badge, like the rest of the other humans. And you think it really does treat oh god, how are they getting out of this? And then it ends. And the way they handle it, I do also really like the fact they have the next time trailers at the end of the credits, because normally the next time trailers would play before the credits, but for the two-parters they did this thing where they'll have it play at the end of the credits, and that would be basically their way of saying, if you want to know what happens, stay after the credits, but if you don't want to be spoiled, get out now and come back next week. So it basically gives shows you what's going to happen next week without spoiling. But let's basically, if you want to get spoiled for yourself, then yeah. I do like that as well. I love the cliffhangers. The cliffhangers are just all the cliffhangers of all the two parts are just fantastic. They're perfect. They keep you in suspense, and they make you want to come back. That's the sign of a good cliffhanger. It makes you want to tune in next time to be what happens next? What's going on here? How did they get out of this one? I like the fact that Slovene also, they don't like acid, uh, electric acid, battery acid, some pickled onions, pickled eggs, that kind of thing. That's the thing that kills them. And I like the fact that Mickey as well, he starts to grow a lot as a character. He starts off in Rose as a coward, but from this episode onwards, he starts to become a bit more, starts to grow into his own. So when he gets to series 4, he's pretty much fully developed into this more competent, competent kind of character, and stronger character as well, which is really cool. And honestly, Alice in London World War 3 is such a good episode. NuWho's first two-parter, and it's fantastic. It leaves on your edge wanting more. I love the Slovene as a concept, as a design as well, and I do like the ending as well when Jackie's trying really hard to get Rose to stay, but she just can't bear it. She wants to travel, and she says to him, "Oh, it's a time machine, Mum. I'll be back 10 minutes," and then she leaves, and then her mum, it's like it's been 10 minutes, and and it leaves that kind of feeling where Jackie really wants Rose to stay. She doesn't want Rose to go because she's had that taste of how dangerous traveling with the Doctor can be. Is she going to see her daughter again? Is her daughter going to see her again? It makes her more relatable. And again, that's what I like about Russ Davis's writing. He grounds his characters, and it feels like a genuine emotion that an actual parent would have if their daughter went traveling in space and time with a strange man in a police box. I mean, are you going back? Are you going to come back? Are you going to die? What's going on? Please don't. And it's very it's very heartbreaking. And I do like that little moment as well where the Doctor does offer Mickey the chance to travel with them. But Mickey turns him down, and then when Rose offers, he pretends to deny it to make Mickey not look cowardly to Rose. So there's that little thing where he helps Mickey out, where it's there's a little bit of a rivalry between him and the Doctor, obviously because of the whole Rose thing, but the Doctor still cares about him because the Doctor, he loves humans, but sometimes he just can't be arsed with them, which sums up 9 in a nutshell perfectly, I imagine. Yeah, so Aliens Land World War 3, Series 1's first proper two-parter is, again, great two-parter, a great start to the two-parters, and it leaves you on your seat wanting more. But let's get into probably one of the best episodes of this series, Dalek. Dalek is a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece. Robert Sherman, you did a fantastic job writing this. I haven't brought the novelization you wrote, but I'm going to buy it soon. I'm going to read it soon because I want to see I really want to see it. Read that and see all the little differences. I want to buy all the Target novelizations and read them because I haven't bought any of those, and I really want to read them because I want to see all the little differences there are from the televised episodes. Honestly, Dalek is a masterpiece. It's brilliantly acted, brilliantly written, brilliantly directed. It brings us to the Daleks and it makes them scary again. I don't know, did the Daleks ever stop being scary during the classic era? I'm not too sure. But the fact that, this first episode, oh my god, it really showcases just how much of a powerful enemy the Daleks really are. It first introduced us to Adam Mitchell, played by Bruno Langley, who will not be reappearing on Doctor Who again anytime soon. But it's still a good episode though, and it's you have this big gigantic villain, and it shows you just how terrifying and how threatening the Daleks can actually be, and really are, because they really are that threatening, and just and nowadays, obviously, because they've been reused over and over and over again, that sort of threat doesn't really come across anymore. The Jodie Whittaker era it tried to gain that kind of scare factor back for the Daleks, and it did a decent job trying to gain it back, but it'll never capture the threat that the Daleks had in these first 4 series. And I think it's because this era in particular understood the Daleks so well. I feel like the other eras didn't. The Stephen Moffat era didn't really get them very well, get the Daleks very well, which I'll get into when we get to Series 11 and then get to Peter Capaldi's era. The Christopher Chibnall, he had a good understanding of what the Daleks were, in my opinion. He did a decent job with the Daleks, but it'll never compare to how they were handled in this era, because in this era they are fucking terrifying. And the fact that in this episode, the fact that just one Dalek, just one of these fuckers kills off the whole station. I think there's only a couple 3 soldiers left after this, maybe 4 characters left after this, and it's just phenomenal. Just how, and it's brilliantly written and brilliantly directed. And I love the fact that, because again, we've heard of the Time War and stuff like that, but and the fact that Chris Eccleston's Doctor comes into his own really in this episode, and you see the pain and the frustration and the fact that he's shocked at the fact that this one Dalek survived. The one Dalek one of these creatures survived the Time War, and he wants rid of it completely, and he wants to destroy it completely. And like when the Dalek is chained up, and the Dalek is like, the Doctor, and then he finds out the Dalek can't fire its weapon, and he's like, he calls him the great space dustbin, and there's this really great scene where he's just torturing this Dalek, and he's having so much fun doing it. And it shows that, again, this is not the same. Obviously, the Doctor's always hated the Daleks. Like, the Doctor's always had this kind of disdain for them. But the fact that this Doctor really is getting pleasure out of just giving pain to this Dalek who's already been through enough pain by Van Staten, who's a great villain, by the way. I love Van Staten. He's so over the top and corny, and he's greedy. It's great. I love Henry Van Staten. Corey Johnson did a great job in the role. It's a shame Henry Van Staten never came back, but his mind gets his memory wiped. He's basically the rich guy who doesn't know what he has or what he's getting into. He just wants to collect things. He wants to own things. He's like, oh, look at me, I have this great collection of alien artifacts. What do you have? He's basically just doing it. He's basically just collecting these things for clout. That's actually it. He's basically just collecting all these stuff for clout, basically. And I guess money as well to sell them off and stuff like that. But yeah, and the fact that the Dalek sent this little distress signal, and it got to the TARDIS, and the Doctor finds out it's Dalek, and he's just having too much fun. He's really enjoying just wounding and weakening this Dalek, and just trying to destroy it, and he's having fun doing it, and just sees the side of the Doctor that I don't think we've ever really seen before. Even in the classic era, like I know Liam Hartnell's Doctor tried killing a caveman in his first episode, like I said before, but I think he only did that because the caveman was like slowing them down. In this one though, this Doctor, because he's coming off the Time War, he's a war veteran, and he's seeing one of his enemies, the enemy that he was supposed to destroy, one of them survived. At least he knows of anyway. And you just see like the pain and the suffering from him. And again, like I said before, in that moment where he's screaming at the Dalek, the Dalek just says, "Oh, you would make a good Dalek." I love that one part in that scene as well. I love that there's like that small 2 to 3 second gap of just silence between the two of them. And I love the fact that there's, when he's screaming at the Dalek, there's like that actual like spit just coming out of his mouth, and you really see the pain on his face. And the fact there's like this 2 to 4 second silence between the two of them before the Dalek says that line about how he would make a good Dalek. And there's that, again, like there's that reaction where he's like, he knows the Dalek's right, but he doesn't want to believe it. Rose is also really good in this episode, fantastic in this. The fact that she's the one who awakes the Dalek, and then the Dalek tries to kill her, but he can't, because it turns out like half of her DNA got into it, and the Daleks begin to change, because obviously Daleks are programmed to hate. They were inspired by Nazis, and people say Doctor Who's not political. Daleks are literally inspired by Nazis. That's public record. That's very well known. So they're like, they're born to to hate things that are not them. Anything that's not a Dalek, and just kill anything that's not a Dalek, enslave anything that's not a Dalek, try and take someone and turn people into Daleks. Certainly because Rose's DNA has gone into the Dalek. As well, and it's the thing that heals the Dalek. I also really love how the Dalek starts off as rusty and broken down, and as soon as Rose touches it, it starts to like fix itself. It starts to like get more shinier and get more gold and get more. The orbs start to like brighten up a little bit, and it's phenomenal. And the fact the bronze Daleks as well. There's a reason why they kept the bronze Daleks for so long. They look the best. They look very threatening. I mean, granted, don't get me wrong, I do think the Daleks desperately do need a new upgrade. Not a big one, just a small one, because I think we are starting to get tired of them in general. And obviously, I would prefer if the Daleks just went away for a few years. But there's probably rumors running around that Shuri Gatwa's final episode of Series 14, the Series 14 finale, will be a Dalek invasion, which makes sense, I guess, because each new Doctor needs to face off the Daleks at least once during their era. You know what I mean? So if that's and it'll be good to see Russ Davis write for the Daleks again. See if he can bring back that scare factor to him, that threat. Because in this episode, it's very prevalent. This thing is a killing machine, and he'll do whatever it takes. He'll do whatever it fucking takes to kill. But Rose's DNA gets into it and starts changing, and the Doctor has this. You see the Doctor holding a gun, holding a weapon, and he's going to kill him. and then Rose is the one that talks him down. And I realized, why Rose travels with him is because she's the only one who can talk him down to this kind of thing. And she says, who are you changing into? And it's really sad at the end because that Dalek has to kill itself because it's going against its general programming. It's born to hate, so it can't be good. So it has to kill itself, and that's really sad. You can see the pain in Rose. It's come so far, and now it can't live because it's programming, and it's very tragic. It'll prove why there'll never be a good Dalek. And again, Dalek overall, honestly, it's what can I really say about this episode? It's a masterpiece. Dalek is a masterpiece. It's one of the best episodes of Series 1, best episodes of NuWho in general. The fact that I've literally seen like top 10 NuWho lists and this episode in it anywhere. I don't know why. What's that about? Come on, let's give Dalek more love, because the episode, it brought the Daleks back in a big and better way after so long of just being, the Pepper Pots. The design is cool, and they're just this massive threat. And Nicholas Briggs as well. I forgot to mention Nicholas Briggs' Dalek voice. His Dalek voice is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It's creepy. But it has that kind of motifs and quirks that it's basically what the Dalek's voice would sound like, updated. That's what he's done. He's updated the Dalek voice. He must get paid a fortune to voice the Daleks as well, because he comes back every single time. And yeah, his voice is fantastic, and it's iconic, and it's I can't picture anybody else voicing him. I know it's going to happen soon. Whether he retires or he passes away. I don't know if it'll happen soon or not, but I guess, and I guess also maybe his background in audio as well, because obviously he runs Big Finish, the company who, he's a sound designer, Nicholas Briggs, and he's obviously using his background to sound to create this cool, unique kind of Dalek voice. But yeah, he runs Big Finish and everything as well, so he's using that background to create this cool, unique iconic Dalek voice that I can't imagine anyone else doing it. And anyone who does try to will probably just end up mimicking what he did, because that's the standard voice of Daleks now. That should be the standard for Dalek voices, because it's such an iconic voice. No disrespect to the guys who voiced the Daleks in the classic era, they did a good job with what they were given. But Nicholas Briggs' voice for the Daleks is the more iconic one, and it's the more definitive one in my opinion. His voice for the Daleks is absolutely superb, and this episode of Dalek is superb. What else should I talk about? I think that's pretty much it really. But the Dalek is great. I like the fact that Adam's a good character as well, and I like the fact he gets introduced as this potential companion and doesn't work out in the next episode, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But honestly, Dalek, fantastic episode, great episode. I mean, what can I say? It's a masterpiece. Go watch it. If you haven't watched it in a while, go watch it. If this is not on your top 10 lists of NuWho episodes, change that now. Put it in that list now. Change your list, because the episode deserves more recognition. I hope Robert returns to NuWho soon. I know he was supposed to return for Series 5 apparently. He was actually supposed to come back for Series 5, but it didn't work out in the end, which sucks. I would have loved to have seen what we could have done in Series 5, but I hope Robert Sherman comes back to NuWho one day. Maybe Russell can convince him to, but who knows. Now on to episode 7, The Long Game. The first episode set on Satellite 5, space station orbiting Earth, which is really cool. It's Adric's first and last trip in the TARDIS. Simon Pegg is in this episode, and he plays a villain, and he plays a really good villain too. Tasman Gregg is also in this episode. She plays a nurse as well. She's always good in everything she's in. I do like this episode and how it's basically this massive station where you can buy food, and it's basically where it's kind of like a marketplace in a weird way. Below the tower, there's this giant weird alien thing called the Dragofest that looms over it, and it's supposed to behave like a shark apparently, which looks like it as well. That thing is creepy, man. That thing is creepy. Simon Pegg plays the editor, who's really creepy as well. He's just, Simon Pegg is usually known for comedies, like Run Fat by Run, the Cornetto trilogy. So seeing him in this, where he's playing a much meaner character, let's just say, much more creepier, is quite refreshing for him. He doesn't really play a lot of villains. I've not really seen him in a lot of villain roles except for this one, the Jagrafess, who the editor he answers to, which is quite interesting, really. He basically, it's basically like fake news in a way, where he controls the lives of people by manipulating news, manipulating stories, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, Adam accidentally gives him information about the Doctor, because Adam gets that port inserted in his brain, and uses Rose's, and uses the fact he uses Rose's phone to transfer data from it. He finds out about the Doctor and plans on killing him, which obviously is sort of Adam's betrayal in a way, and why Adam can't really trouble the Doctor anymore, because he betrayed him. He almost got him killed, and the excuse he makes as well is just one that's like, it shows his ugly head in a way where he was like, oh, I really want to travel the world and everything, I want to see the world, and then he does it, and it turns out he's not actually as good of a person as the Doctor and Rose thought at first. Unfortunately, the whole episode though, like the fact that it's about him controlling the news and stuff like that, fake news, misinformation, that kind of thing. The fact that that was the storyline in 2005. The fact that was one of the major themes about it, which is quite cool. Let's talk about the ending. Let's get to the ending with Adam. So obviously with Adam, as I said before, he gets a chip inserted in his brain. The Dragon first accesses his information, and information he finds out about the Doctor, and he tries to kill the Doctor. As well as that, he very nearly tries to change history, and I think in a way I think if I remember correctly, he knowingly tries to change history, if I remember, which the Doctor which the Doctor doesn't approve of, and he takes him back to his house, and it's a very bittersweet kind of moment, because again, it showcases why Adam would not have worked as a companion, because he's very selfish. The Doctor even says you're helping yourself, so because he was helping himself, he was being really selfish. He was helping no one really except himself, and I do like this ending as well, because he has that chip in his brain, so it opens as soon as you snap your fingers, and so him and Rose are taunting him a little bit with that, and Doctor even says they'll dissect you in seconds. You have to live a very average life, be unseen, be normal, which Adam doesn't really want to do, and it's a bittersweet kind of moment for him. I would have loved to have seen maybe if Adam came back as like a villain or some kind, or grew some resentment towards the Doctor or something like that, which could which could happen, but he'd have to be played by a different actor. The ending I feel like is very impactful and very powerful, and it does show like that scene where Chris Eccleston is just walking towards Adam outside the TARDIS with that stern look on his face. It's like it's like when when a child is like messed up completely, and the parent is just looking at them like, what the fuck, you're in big trouble when we get home. It's kind of what it looks like, which is funny because he actually takes Adam back to his house. And then obviously his mum snaps her fingers, his brain opens up, and that's kind of the start of him trying to stay out of trouble, basically. But overall, I mean, the long game is a pretty interesting episode. The fact that, again, about manipulation and all that stuff, that's really cool. The villain was really cool as well, very creepy, very scary. Simon Pegg is really good in it. I recommend, I'd recommend the long game. It's a good episode, and it's also a very important episode as well, because it does set up events that come into play in Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways, particularly with Satellite 5 and everything. After that, we get probably another masterpiece in this series, which has to be Father's Day, which is obviously, this is much more of a, obviously, because I mean the companions are pretty much the main characters anyway. Doctor usually takes a back seat to them, particularly in the Rusty Davies era, when he was writing the show. But obviously for this one's completely focuses more on Rose. She wants to travel back to see her dad. Her dad passed away when she was it's Billie Piper, pretty much one of her best performances, I think. And she corrupts time, particularly damaging the timeline, everything, and which causes the Reapers to make an appearance at the wedding and everything, and attack people, and just see that the situation of the Reapers are basically showing Rose what she did, the repercussions of her actions. And I do like that, but I also like the fact that she wants to save her dad. She wants her dad in her life, and she wants to bring him back. And she wants, much like Adam in the previous episode, how he wanted to change history. She also wants to change history, but she wants to change her personal history. She doesn't want to. Adam wanted to change the whole of history by having people know about Satellite 5, in 2005. But Rose just wanted to change her personal history, but even that can cause massive repercussions, and it just shows, that how sensitive of a thing time is, and how you have to be careful of what you change, what you can't change, as well. Which even the Doctor even said more times, I know what I can change, and what I can't change about the past. So the Reapers are also really cool villains as well. They're very, they're quite had these weird kind of pterodactyl-esque, kind of like, I would say they're a bit like a mix between a pterodactyl and a vulture, but they're very creepy. They're very scary. Again, they're a very good CGI villain. Originally, they were supposed to look like the Grim Reaper. I guess a little bit like the monster in Heaven Sent. But I guess maybe that was a bit too. But maybe they changed it because it was a little bit too far. But again, and to be fair, I think having that literally be the Grim Reaper wandering around killing people, that would have been a bit too far, even for Saturday night drama. Even for 2005 standards, that would be a bit. That'd be a bit too far. That'd be a little bit too far. Let's see. But yeah, so. The Reapers, they're really cool, but and there's so many good scenes as well, like when the Reapers just straight up, we presume kill the Doctor, by consuming him, and he disappears, and then the fact that they figure out that that in order to fix this mess, Peter has to die. Rose has to watch her dad die to fix the timeline, basically. Like she has to watch him die to fix the timeline. There's that great scene where the Doctor walks up to what he believes to be the TARDIS, and he opens it, and it's just a regular phone box, and that is just like that's such an iconic scene in Doctor Who's 60-year plus history, really. I love the conflict between him and Rose, how Rose changed time, and he doesn't like that, he disapproves of that. And he says, I've done it again, I picked another stupid ape, who, calling it like stupid ape and all that stuff, which causes their fallout. And you do also get some iconic lines, like when he's running up to Rose, it's very it's very threatening, and it's very the stakes are very high. There's a lot of tension, a lot of suspense in there. And again, when the Doctor, the Doctor, gets consumed by the Reapers, you don't know, because he's the oldest thing in the church. So they consume him and he disappears. You think, is he dead? Is he going to come back? Like, how's he going to come back? Like, the stakes are really high. It shows you that, again, anything can happen in the show. Anyone can die. Anyone can go. But I think the biggest heartbreak in this episode is the fact that when Rose learns about her dad and learns about, that he's not really the man that her mother made him out to be. Like, that they're fighting all the time and everything. And, she gets really upset with it, and she goes, stop it. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be a happy family, and she realizes that that it wasn't as wonderful as she believed it would be, and then there's also that really another iconic scene where Peter gives her baby Rose her baby Rose, so she holds her, and don't touch the baby thing. That was quite a good scene. But I do love the scene where when Peter learns about this and he has to sacrifice himself, and he tells Rose, him and Rose have a heart, and she finally gets kind of that moment with her dad that she's always always been looking for and always wanted. And it shows just how hard Rose has had her life over the years and everything. They grew up without a dad. They had to live in a council estate house. She works in a shop, barely earning enough to keep her and her mum afloat. In this one, but she finally gets some kind of resolution in a way to the mystery, to the storyline of her father, and that's very beautiful to me. And that by Paul Cornell, like, he does a good job writing this. And yeah, Rose, great episode. Billie Piper is on point. This is one of her best performances as a character, like, ever, in my opinion. And so Father's Day, again, another masterpiece. Go watch it if you can. And then let's get to another masterpiece. It's just masterpiece after masterpiece here, with The Empty Child and Dr. Dances, the first episode of the new era, written by a certain writer, a certain Scottish man who would later on go on to run Doctor Who himself after being a mega fan when he was a child, and that, of course, being Stephen Moffat. Stephen Moffat is one of a kind, really, isn't he? Obviously, yes, his era showrunner, is very hit or miss. But that being said, he is still a good writer, and a lot of good did come out of him being showrunner, which we'll get to when we get to the Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi eras. And yeah, so he was good as that. He was good. But he is a good writer though. Like, I feel like during his era of Doctor Who, people kind of forgot he was a good writer. I mean, granted, some of the stories, a lot of the stories he wrote weren't great. But in these first 4 that he does under Russell's first era is fantastic, and I think that probably could have been due to like time, like maybe he had a little more time to work on them, redraft them, that kind of thing. But Stephen Moffat, I mean, you watch this first 2-parter, Empty Child and Doctor Dances, and you understand right away, this guy, he gets it. He gets the show. He understands what the show is. I mean, he would do, because he was a big fan when he was a kid. He used to watch Doctor Who as a kid. There's that old photograph of him actually reading a Target novelization, and he's done a lot of, and yeah, so these early stories, I mean, are really good. He gets it, he understands it, and and it's a good 2-parter, The Empty Child and Doctor Dances. It's one of NuWho's best, really, and it helps set off Torchwood. It introduced us to John Barrowman, aka Captain Jack. It has some really good moments as well. Like, again, Everybody Lives. When the Doctor finally remembers how to dance, and he's dancing with Rose in the TARDIS. And that, like, Rose dangling off the London blimp during the Blitz, wearing the Union Jack T-shirt. That's quite cool. I like the fact that again, her and the Doctor are kind of after this. They're after this kind of this metal cylinder thing, and it lands during the Blitz, and it looks like a bomb as well, which doesn't really help. It gives it that kind of that's the kind of like Stephen Moffat comedic kind of foil that I quite like, particularly in these early episodes. But obviously the big thing I think everyone wants to talk about here is the gas mask. The gas mask, the child with the gas mask, and the adults with the gas masks, just the gas mask people in general. Like, it's a very creepy looking design. I mean, and obviously the gas mask, during the Blitz, you look at that design even out of Doctor Who, and that does still look quite scary. Like, this mask with this big almost like snout as well. Like, it looks creepy, and I do love the fact that the kid who plays the child, Albert Valentine, as well as Noah Johnson, who does the voice, the "Are you my mummy" voice, which is so fucking creepy and scary. Like, again, this is an episode that terrified me as a kid, but it's one of the reasons why again, I love Doctor Who so much. This is why I fell in love with the show in the first place. It made me terrified, it made me scared, which is weird, but because people would think kids wouldn't like being scared, but I think kids do like to be scared. I think it just depends on how you do it. That's the main thing. And yeah, so the gas mask kids are pretty much like an iconic design, an iconic creation. I like the fact that when Richard Wilson's character, Dr. Costain, when he's talking, and you just see the gas mask like grow on him, like the snout like comes out of his mouth, and it just peels on his skin. It's just it's creepy and it's terrifying. I love it. And there's a lot of great like horror moments in there as well. Obviously a lot of these would eventually turn into the typical Stephen Moffat tropes, and that I would use in other stories, but even in this one it's still pretty effective, and even when you watch it over and over again, it still works. Like, there's that scene in the Doctor Dances when they're listening to a recording of the child on a tape, and then the tape runs out, but you don't really realize it because the Doctor's still talking. And it's not until Rose is like, Doctor, what's that noise? And he's like, oh, it's a tape. It ran out 30 seconds ago. But you can still hear the child calling, and they turn around and he's there, and he's just standing at them, and it's like, oh god, it's terrifying. And when the child's like breaking through the wall as well, like, Jesus Christ, how strong is this kid? But I do think as well, like, I think the standout performance here for me is definitely Florence Hofe as Nancy. I think Nancy's a great character, again, like, taking inspiration from, Oliver Twist. And when you find out later on that the child is hers, he's actually her son. You think that the child is the empty child, Jamie. That's the name of the child. You think Jamie is her brother because she says he's a brother, but then you find out the twist. What a twist! That it's actually her son, and like, it's a really effective performance. And it turns out that she's the only one who can stop this from happening. It's with her, her love and her acceptance of her being his mum that can help prevent it. That can help, when she hugs him, and the nanogens, that's it, yeah, when the nanogens, when with the nanjins and everything, they start figuring out, like, when she hugs him, they have the DNA, and they start to, like, they share the same DNA, and that she's his mother that he's looking for. And then the Doctor's able to use that to remove that, not just remove Jamie's mask, but all other people's masks as well. Again, the everybody lives moment. It's such a good moment, because the Doctor, he wins. And he doesn't normally win. He doesn't save everybody. What they're lucky if they're able to save one or two people, but not like there's barely a day when they when everybody lives. And the way Stephen Moffat writes it is very heartwarming. The way Chris Eccleston portrays it is very heartwarming. There's a reason why this is known as why Chris Eccleston has said during his that's why this is one of his better episodes during his run. And obviously again it introduced us to Captain Jack, played by John Barrowman. And so again, the Doctor Dances, the Anti-Child and Doctor Dances is another classic. It's an absolute masterpiece. Give it a watch. It started off Stephen Moffat's really great track record and great reign, and it led us to great stories like Girl in the Fireplace, Blink, Silence of the Library, Thoughts of the Dead, so again, if you haven't watched this one in a while, give it a watch. It's great. It's fantastic. I love it. I love it. Now let's go on to Boomtown. This is probably the one episode of series 1 I do not like. Because obviously, it's all right. It's okay. But like, it's fine for what it is. It's a bit of fluff. It's a bit of fun. Captain Jack and Rose and Doctor, they're a good trio. Mickey's a decent part of the story, but I don't know. It's just, you get more of the Bad Wolf story arc as well. But again, as I said before, it's not too focused on, to the point where it can alienate like a casual viewer who wants to just jump in looking for like decent drama during Saturday night. And it's an okay episode. I would describe this as a fun filler episode. I think Boomtown's a fun filler episode. Again, it's good to see Sylvine. It's cool that one of them survived. And Margaret Blaine is a decent enough character, a decent enough villain. I do like the idea that I like the scene. I think the best scene in this one is when her and the Doctor are at dinner, and he's like, oh, you let someone go, but that's nothing new. Sometimes you spare somebody because they have freckles, or they smiled, or they begged. You let one go, and essentially she, because she's convinced that she's changed, and he's not really convinced either. And then she's like, what, Doctor, you're right. You do sometimes you let one go. It is hard. That's a good scene. I do like the scene with him. I do like the scene with him and her at the dinner table. I do also like the running gags as well, where she keeps trying to poison him. Like when it's a dart through the finger. When she tries to putting thing in the wine, and he just sort of swaps it round. Or when she tries getting poison through the lung, where they keep poisoning through the lungs, and he just quickly takes out some mints, and he's like, "That's better." I feel like that's quite funny. There is some good funny comedy in this, and again, like the scene where Mickey tells Rose he's staying with somebody else, and she gets mad at him, and he kind of just bursts out at her and goes, "You left me for him." And that again was a very heartwarming scene. So again, Boomtown is not a bad episode by any means necessary, and again, I like the fact they come back to the Rift. From the Unquiet Dead, which again helps to continue to set up Torchwood, the spin-off series. But again, like it's fine, but it's fun filler. It's filler. It feels a bit like filler. It's like the cleanser to the grand finale that is, which we'll get to now, which is of course Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways. Oh my God, was this when the what can I even say about it that can't be said already? Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways is just, it's a phenomenal finale, because again, just went all out with this grand, big, epic finale in scope. And I'm gonna spoil this now. So I'm not the biggest fan of all the other regeneration stories, and Time of the Doctor, Twice Upon a Time. I'm not the biggest fans of those. But I would say that out of all of them, this is my favorite, because I feel like, because again, maybe because they didn't know if they were gonna get a second series, but the fact that they go all out with this, saying this could be the last time you see the Doctor and Rose on screen, and I do love it. I love the fact that we go back to Satellite 5, but the Doctor doesn't figure that out until halfway through the episode, halfway through Bad Wolf, when Linda with Y tells him. I also really love Linda with Y. I think she's a great character as well. She's very lovable and very likable as well. I do like the fact that Rose does get a little bit jealous when she's there, particularly when Linda gets that plot point before her, and Rose has that kind of scowling look on her face. She's like, ugh. I do like that part. I do like the fact that it spoofs a ton of reality TV shows, and has that kind of thing of premising what reality TV would have ended up like in the predicting what reality TV would have been like in the future. Obviously not to that extent, but reality TV going much bigger and bolder and just more crazier. Granted, a lot of these shows, I mean, Big Brother, I think is Big Brother still going? I think I remember, did it end at one point? I don't know. I remember it ending at some point, but they could have brought it back. Weakest Link originally has now come back. I do love also the Android. I love the Android. I also love the fact that it's literally called the Android. And obviously What Not to Wear as well. I don't think that's it. That's not coming back, is it? That's not coming back. That ain't coming back anytime soon. So yeah. And I like the fact he enters. I like the fact as well, like when you get to this episode, the Doctor wakes up in like the Big Brother house, and Captain Jack wakes up in What Not to Wear, and Rose wakes up in the Weakest Link, and it creates that kind of mystery as well, where you're thinking like, wait, what's going on here? Like what's this big? The fact that again, there's a big mystery, a big conspiracy building up, but you haven't really figured it out yet, and it's not until people start dying, like when they get expelled from the Big Brother house, they die. Weakest Link, they get killed off if they get voted out. What Not to Wear, who try and kill Captain Jack until he takes that ray gun out of his ass and shoots him. And it's obviously known now as the game station. Saturday 5 is known as the game station, and set in the year 2100, so 100 years afterwards as well. And you see the Doctor's face where he realizes that what he did back in the long game, he thought he was helping, and then what actually happened was it actually had a lot more worse, because Linda Y even says, that day was the day everything went wrong. And he realized that the Doctor caused this, and there's that feeling of guilt on him as well, that he needs to stop this. And and there's also this massive, again, you don't really figure out that the Daleks are involved until towards the end of the episode. Obviously, if you watch the Next Time trailer to Boomtown, you would have known, because they spoiled it in the trailers, which is just, I don't know why they did that, to be honest. But it does mean, if you didn't, this would have been a great, thing to watch and figure out for yourself. It'd be good to watch and realize that, this is what the Daleks are doing. The Daleks are all doing this. And when you realize, the Doctor finds out the Daleks are still alive, that kind of, and there's thousands of them, millions of them. There's that great scene where Captain Jack is like, but they were destroyed, and the Doctor, with that very just sad look on his face, realizing that he killed his planet, he killed his race all for nothing, and he's like, obviously they survived. And it's like that again, that look in his face, the pain and the anger, that he killed his race for nothing. He did it to destroy all the Daleks, but in order to do that, he had to destroy all of the Time Lords as well. And it turns out they survived. And again, it's really heartbreaking to have that happen to him. And Chris Eccleston sells it so well with his expressions and his acting. He's on his top form. I feel like these two are his best episodes, definitely. This two-parter, his last episode, he kills it. There's a thing where all these doctors seem to peak towards the end of their eras, for some reason. But I think that's because it's their last episode, and they want to give it their all before they walk off into the sunset and regenerate. Speaking of which, let's get to Parting of the Ways as well. I love the scene where he goes to collect Rose, and they materialize around Rose. And then he walks out the TARDIS, and he has that kind of confrontation with Daleks, and he finds out that they survived through the Dalek Emperor, through the Time War, and they actually they escaped to Earth. They harvested DNA from humanity, so they're kind of like a weird mixture, like a hybrid, as Peter Capaldi would say in Series 9, of human and Dalek, and it drives them crazy, drives them insane. Drives them mad. They're basically savages, which is quite a cool thing to see. And then you see this fight and this battle and this brawl as well going on Satellite 5, or the game station, and where the Doctor has to where they have to make a stand and everything. But he sends Rose home. I love that scene where, he and Rose are in the TARDIS and he's hooking up. I think he's creating some kind of machine that can like help destroy all the Daleks, but it'll destroy Satellite 5 in the process. And he comes with another idea. Well, he claims he comes with another idea, so we think, oh yes, he's ready to go. He's thought of it out. He's figured out. And then he runs out the TARDIS, and then that smile turns into a frown. He turns around. There's that blank of look of sadness on his face. Points his sonic screwdriver, and TARDIS disappears. And then Rose realizes he's sending her home. He doesn't have a plan. That was just a ploy for him to get Rose in the TARDIS so he can send her home. And Billie Piper really sells that, when the TARDIS lands and she's trying hard to like get it to take off again, but she can't because she doesn't know how to drive it. And it's just, oh man, it's so heartbreaking to see that as well. And you see, and while they're both separate, it does kind of suck a little bit that in this last episode, the Doctor and Rose do spend quite a bit of it separated, but at the same time, it was because obviously this is the last time we see Eccleston and Piper on the same screen together, in the same episode together. Unless they decide to do any Big Finish audios featuring the two of them, which I'd be down for. I'd be down for a Big Finish audio drama where it's set between, I don't know, Doctor Dancers and Boomtown or something like that, or it's just a one-off adventure that happens somewhere after Dalek finished. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to include Adam, I guess, but yeah. And just Billie Piper again, she's at her best here, and because obviously I feel like there was I think I read somewhere there was a bit of a backlash when Billie Piper got announced as the companion, because obviously she was known as a pop singer, not really an actress. So the fact that she's giving it her role, and this is one of her first big roles, and she's like just knocking out of the park first time around, just shows that never underestimate somebody, never complain about it, never underestimate the power of a good casting director. That's what I say. Yeah. And the Battle of Satellite 5 is fantastic. I love the scene where Linda Y is locked herself in the room, so she's watching where the Daleks are going on the monitor, and then they start going down to where that's where all the contestants are being kept, and they just kill them. They kill all of them. They're supposed to be all the winners as well of the game shows. They die. They kill them. They all like die, and you just hear their screams as well. There's that guy. Can't remember his name. I think he's called Rodney or something like that. He's the guy who Roderick. That was it. I think it's Roderick. Yeah, it's Roderick. Who's he was facing off against Rose, and I think it's Link. He even says that he deliberately kept her there so he could win. Because he thought it'd be an easy win. Which again helped build the tension, suspense when Rose was in that game. And he does a bit of a prick, and normally when pricks like that, you'd be like, oh yeah, go on, get him, yeah, but like not this time. This time it's just, even then you just feel sorry for him, like, and all the other contestants there, because it's just like they killed them for no reason. Like they didn't do anything wrong. They weren't a threat to him, the Daleks, but the Daleks killed them because they're not Daleks. That just shows again how evil and just how horrible and just hateful the Daleks really are, and just and again this episode reminds me why the Daleks were such a threat in the first place. I mean, again, as I feel like that did get a bit lost, particularly during the Stephen Moffat era, and the Christian era tried to regain some of that back, and it did the best it could. But again, this era in particular reminds us why the Daleks were such an effective villain, and why Russell and the BBC kept bringing them back after so long, aside from the fact that they probably just sell a lot of toys, really. I don't think the Terry Nation estate deal is real. I actually, I think the reason why they just bring them back every year, honestly, is because Daleks most likely just sell a lot of toys. That's usually it. They're easily marketable and they sell a lot of toys. That's usually Joe Ahern. That's it. Because I don't think I pronounced it wrong earlier. Joe Ahern, he does a great job directing this episode. He really captures just how creepy the Daleks are when they're swinging around the corridor. You see their shadows. And there's that. Oh, speaking of which, there's that great scene with Linda with Hawaii, who she's in this room, and the Daleks are trying to get through the door, but then she thinks to herself, okay, and the Doctor he reassures her, look, that's 10 pounds of metal there. You're gonna be safe. Don't worry, you'll be safe. And then she turns around, and then 3 Daleks pop up on this glass window. You see the light. You don't hear them say exterminate, but you see the light bulb, the little lights on their helmets light up, so they're saying exterminate. The glass breaks. You hear Linda scream, and then the face that Chris Rackson pulls, that face of just he loved Linda with Hawaii, and the fact that he hears the screams and he realizes they got her, she's dead. and it's just such a powerful scene because Linda is such a likable character. And that's what great about Russ Davis in general. He creates these characters that we like and we care about, and that are incredibly likable. And then, so when he does kill them off, it hurts, man. Like, it hurts. Like, and again, as well, same thing with all the other all the other contestants in there. The contestants, the other staff members who, who took part in it, like on Satellite 5, and there's that couple. I can't remember who plays them. I can't remember the names either at the moment, but they do. They like, oh yeah, let's go on a date after this, and then she gets killed, and then the woman gets killed. It's the woman from the Tracy Beaker, the story of Tracy Beaker, the one that played the main woman who at the dumping ground. I can't remember her name. Lorraine, that's who the actress who plays Lorraine. She gets killed off. The guy who asked her out, he gets pissed. He gets emotional, so he starts firing. Just starts firing, and then they kill him as well. And again, it's just sad to see him there. Like, it's just see him there. It's just sad to see him go like that. Like, and it's horrible, but it's it's one of those things where it's just one of those things where again, it's one of the good things Ross Davis does. It gets you emotional core like pumping and everything, and gets you weeping, basically makes tears come out of your eyes, and it affects you in ways. And reminds you why we love media, why we love stories, and creates just such good television as well. And again, there's also that scene as well where Rose is back on Earth and she's talking with her mum and Mickey, and she's like has that great powerful speech where she's like, you make a stand, you say no, you do what you can when the rest of the world just runs away. And it's just, again, it's heartbreaking because Rose has pretty much lost everything. She doesn't want the Doctor to die. She wants to help. She can't just, because after everything that she's been through, after everything she's done, she can't just stand there and do nothing. And she has to help. She has to help him because she's seen him help other people, and through that he's made her better. He himself becomes better as well. Like, he starts to slowly get back to who he used to be during the classic era, and that's a really great kind of story arc for him. That's how I see it, anyways. But then obviously there's that great feeling where they're trying to get the TARDIS to work, and then Jackie shows up with a crane, and she's like, "You're going out of this." So they have to. So obviously Rose has to open up the console, and obviously kind of like bathe in the light of the TARDIS, the time vortex. Basically, she absorbs the time vortex, and there's that great scene where Doctor's confronted by all the Daleks. He's pretty much the last one standing. Everyone's dead. Callum Jack is dead as well, and he's got his hands on the lever. He's about to pull it, and then the Daleks are taunting him, and they're like, "Could you really do it, though? Could you really do it? And could you really destroy the planet, destroy everything?" And Doctor, he takes his hands off and he just goes, "No, coward, any day." Because there's been times when we've seen the Doctor, straight up, allow people. He let Cassandra die. He was almost about to kill a Dalek, and now we've gone from that to, "No, I'd rather be a coward," and he just puts it away. And he's getting back to that kind of how he used to be, where he helps people. And he tries to find the best. They try to find the best in people, and everything else, and all that. And it's a really great scene. And then we get the TARDIS reemerges. Rose arrives, coming. There's that glow coming out of her eyes. She's got the time vertex, and she just kills all the Daleks. And that's what the whole Bad Wolf thing was about. She spread the words "Bad Wolf" around time and space, just for a message for themselves as well, which is so good use of the whole time travel thing when you figure that out as well, and it's so cool. Because earlier in Boomtown, the Doctor says, it's like this thing that's following us wherever we go, and and then you find out it's because Rose was the one who put it there in the first place, and that was kind of her role in a way. But I don't think it makes her massively important. She's important, but it isn't like she doesn't make her like special or prophecy. Just make it very much of a prophecy, really. Really, I don't think. And using that, she disintegrates the Daleks fleet, and then she starts saying, "Oh, my head, it hurts," because she sees all of time and space, which is what Doctor sees. So he has to kiss her, which obviously was just done to get the Doctor to kiss his companion. Which obviously was a thing that started with the TV movie when Paul McGann kissed Grace. But I think the revived series expanded on that a little bit to the point where it kind of got, okay, we've done this now. Let's stop it now. And then the Time Float test enters his own body. He releases it back into the TARDIS console, and then everything's all fine, everything's all dandy, and then we get the shot. His hand's on the console, and then we get the orange glow that comes out of his hand. And then he says goodbye to Rose, and he starts talking about regeneration, and that's when the first time when me and a ton of other kids in 2005 learned what regeneration was, and this was our first regeneration, and the fact that we got to know this version of the Doctor throughout this entire era, this entire one season, and then he's going already, and he's already leaving us. And it was very heartbreaking to see, and I was just very shocked as well. I mean, my mum told me what was going on. She was like, "Oh, yeah, he's going to change," and I was like, "What?" He does it, and then he says goodbye to Rose. He says to her, "Oh, you were fantastic, absolutely fantastic." And he says, "And you know what? So was I." And he goes out with a smile. You know what I mean? Like there's no teary eyes, and there's no sadness. He goes out with a smile. He smiles after everything he's been through, after the massive amount of character development he's had throughout the season. He goes out smiling. He's officially developed and became the Doctor that we all remember from the classic era. Where he's happy, he wants to help people. Because he lost himself after the time, which as you would be after he killed his entire race in the biggest war, and then he found out that the people his race were fighting against died for nothing. I think he even says in this episode they died for nothing. And then the fact that after all that went through, he goes out with a smile, and again that's a great way to kind of to reassure fans of this Doctor that because I feel like I'll get to this when we get to the next episode, which is the 10th Doctor's era. I do like the fact that again it reassures the newcomers, the new fans. Obviously the classic era fans won't be very affected by, because they've put this regeneration 7 times prior to this, because we never got to see Paul McGann's regeneration until 2013. But for newcomers, the new fans, this would be very heartbreaking and very heartwarming. So the fact that having him go out with a smile not only helps complete his arc, funnily enough, but it also helps them ease into another era and accept a new Doctor in a way, which of course happens. He regenerates into the 10th Doctor, played by David Tennant, and that's the last we see of the 9th Doctor until he came back for a big finish. And that's it. That is Doctor Who Series 1, and that is the ninth Doctor's era, the first Doctor of the revived series, the best Doctor of the entire show's history. I don't care what anyone says about that. And it's just Series 1 is just perfection. I've said it before, I've said it again, I'll say it again though. This is one of NuWho's, if not NuWho's best. If I had to do a ranking, I would rank this at probably number 2. There's another series that I'll get to later on that just about takes over, but it does a great job. It reintroduces us to this wonderful show. It gave us, and it brought it back in a completely new way. It's still going to this day. It's still running to this very day. We've got the 60th anniversary coming up. We've got Series 14 after this, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful, and and I love it. It brought back. It got a new fandom, a new fan base. It reintroduced it to a ton of old fans as well, to the show that they loved when they were kids, and now they get those, like how my mom got to share it with her kids. Those classic fans get to share it with their kids, and people who love this era will get to share the next era with Shruti Gatwa and Millie Gibson with their kids as well. And it's just this continued cycle. And it all started with Series 1. If this series was not as big of a hit as it was, we wouldn't have gotten to the 50th anniversary. We wouldn't be approaching the 60th anniversary. We would have had to do what the 30th anniversary did, which is a charity show where all the Doctors show up really old and in EastEnders land, basically Albert Square. That's it. It was Albert Square. I think it's Albert Square. And yeah, everybody, that is it for the. But yeah, as I said before, on Series 1, one of NuWho's best, if not NuWho's best. Honestly, go, like, if you've not watched this series in a while, go watch it. Get yourself reintroduced and caught up with the era that started it all, that brought the show back. It's a new beginning, and and if you've not watched Doctor Who before and you're looking for a place to start, this is the perfect place to start. It gets you everything you need to know. There's not too much fan service. It doesn't alienate you as a casual viewer or a newcomer. It does it perfectly. I could go on all day about Series 1. Actually, one thing about this, I will quickly, before I leave it off, the one thing about Series 1, I would say, bit of a, it's not too much of a downer for me, but I would say the music, Murray is, I would say, the thing with the music is that obviously when I first watched this, I liked the music, but the thing with that is that because Murray Gold is a fantastic composer, he's an amazing composer. Granted, I didn't know how to feel when I heard he was coming back for the new series. I was alright with him coming back for the 60th because obviously David and Catherine are back. I'm not sure about Series 14. I kind of feel like they could have given that to somebody else. But Murray Gold is a great composer, and he's composed so many great Doctor Who music that as time went on, his music got he did it for 10 years. 10 years he was composer, and he did it, and he's composer for 10 years, and his music just got better and better and better with every series. That honestly, if you listen back to some of the music in this series, it does sound a bit, I don't know, I can't really pronounce it. It just sounds a bit off, but I feel like but for the first go at it, for composing music for the first new Doctor Who series, it's not bad. Like, it's not bad by any means necessary, but just compared to how much better, do you know what I mean? It's like kind of like when let's say, I don't know, it's kind of like if you play a Crash Bandicoot 1, for example, right? Like, get to see the flaws and stuff like that for their first attempt to making a game. It's great. It's pretty good. But as you went on with number 2 and number 3, the games got better and better and better. That's pretty much Murray Gold's music. The music for this first series is a bit but it got better and better as the show went. It was good when it came out, but we were watching, re-listening to it back in retrospect. I feel like because the music got better and better, it does feel a bit off. But that's just a nitpick. That's just the biggest nitpick I can think of for this series, because this series is gold. It is gold. And again, if you've not watched the series in a long time, rewatch it. Do not skip 9. Do not skip Series 1. If you're one of those people who skips Doctor Number 9, what are you doing? Nah, give Chris Eccleston your love, because this incarnation deserves more love, and I'm glad he's getting more love thanks to the big finish and stuff. If you're a newcomer to Doctor Who and you don't know where to start, this is the start. This is the place to start. It started it all. It got the ball. It brought the show back from the grave. It made the TARDIS launch itself back into space and fly into the time vortex again, and it's still going, and it's still going, and it'll probably continue to go. It's never going to die. I cannot picture a scenario or even a world where the BBC cancels Doctor Who again. That's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. The BBC can do all they can to keep the show on the air, and they should, because it's a great show. So yeah, Doctor Who Series 1, amazing, fantastic. And that wraps up our first episode for the road to the 60th. Tune in next time when I talk about the next era of the show, the 10th Doctor's era, a very popular incarnation, a very popular Doctor, what many people consider the show's golden age of the new revival. But is it really the golden age, or is it just rose tinted glasses? Nah, I'm joking. It is the golden age, of course it is. But listen anyways and find out why that the 10th Doctor's era is still considered the golden age of NuWho. And yeah, everybody. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next Saturday.